My fellow majors, the next update for MENACE, the best up-and-coming early access turn-based tactics game we have seen in quite a while, is just around the corner. At time of recording, in just 4 days, Thursday, the 25th of June, 2026. What is this update? Well, it's the Squad Leaders update number 1, wouldn't you know? Bringing a whole slew of updates to the AI, new game settings, new models for weapons, and oh yeah, 3 brand new squad leaders / pilots that you can recruit and add to your team to make conquering the way back all the easier. Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, including my ongoing coverage of all things MENACE, as well as the turn-based tactics and strategy genre as a whole, then a like on this video, a subscription to the channel, and consideration of checking out my Patreon, where weekly patron-timed exclusive content is currently being uploaded, as well as a bunch of other updates that I currently have in the works. Be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. It helps the channel out immensely through all of the ups and downs and tides of YouTube. So what do we have coming to us in this update? We're going to save the SLs for last because it was part of the 2-part update, the dev diaries that were published to us, and there's a lot of other smaller details to go through before we get to them. As always, if you want to read these full updates for yourself, then I recommend that you do so. I'll have links to them in the description down below. And there are going to be some things that we don't cover today just because there's a lot to discuss. In particular, again, those 3 characters. So sit back, relax, enjoy the details, shall we? First off, right off the bat, we have AI improvements for the game, baby. This is one of the things I've been wanting the most. I've complained a lot about how passive and avoidant the AI is. It makes it feel very frustrating to play against particular armies, such as the MENACE and the Rogue Army. Now, should have a little bit more going on here. So, as Overhyped themselves say, one of the biggest topics for us is improving the enemy's AI in the game. While they are working decently well, there are still a lot of instances in which it reacts too passively, avoids players, or misses opportunities to cause damage. We tried to improve all these aspects, and our main goal was to make the AI more aggressive in general and be more opportunistic and less risk-averse. It should now rate hurting player units a lot higher, and will more likely opt for attacking instead of shuffling around or bypassing player units for mission objectives. It should be more aggressive in general from now on, with a special warning. The pirate boarding commandos are now especially aggressive and reckless. Handle with care. And of course, the boarding commandos are the pirates that are equipped with the jetpack suits and the PDWs that can deal absolutely devastating damage at close range and have the counterattack skill. Very excited to see them really throw themselves into the middle of our lines and just have enemies come to us instead of all packing into little corners of the map until you have them cornered and then unleashing a barrage of hell on you, because it's extremely annoying. We also have custom difficulty options. On game start, you are now presented with a plethora of new difficulty options to tailor the next playthrough exactly to your personal preference and play style. What this means is there are a bunch of different modifiers that you can activate. This isn't just like a normal, hard, extreme, or expert mode type of deal. You can change how many player supply points there are, how many enemy supply points there are, how much it costs to demote someone, how many refunds, if any, you get for changing the OCI, etc., etc. Again, there's a huge swathe of different options here. I'll have the screenshot on screen so you can read them all for yourself. But this is really cool. I do like that you have this option now for people who want to make their own custom campaign to maybe avoid things that annoy them, or just make a challenge run or whatever else. Always cool to see modifiers like this in play. There's a new operation as well for alien wildlife, aka the bugs, and this sounds extremely interesting. Not only does the description sound like it's something that could be a little bit more fun than just like the corrupt the alien eggs mission that we've had a lot of complaints about, but it's also a very large mission. So here's what's going on. Tight roads, alleyways, and large buildings make it hard to effectively use long-range weapons, ordnance, or slow-turning tanks. These maps also help the aliens to hide and find cover among the many obstacles, and find good opportunities to jump unsuspecting or out-of-position player units. It comes with a whopping 15 missions to fight through, and will hopefully breathe some fresh air into fighting the Wayback's alien wildlife. And that's pretty insane, man. Like, most missions have, like, 5, 6, 7 operations that you're going to have to go through, or, you know, operations have that many missions, you know what I'm saying. But now, 15. That's a lengthy duration to throw yourself into. I'm very curious to see exactly how this plays out. It's a long span of time where you're going to be fighting through, getting stuff from the black market, and not being able to change your OCI upgrades at all, which is going to be very curious. There's also a new update where we now have nested tooltips. So if like you're looking at a gun and it has a weird keyword and you don't know what it is, then you press middle mouse button to save that window, open a new window looking at the thing you're trying to look at, and you can keep extending that out. If there's a whole different selection of questions that you have about particular aspects of the game, very cool. A bunch of new 3D weapon models for the SOC, the SDMR, the Kruger CTMP, and the laser rifle, all very good to see. And interestingly, the black market is now going to be able to be restocked, or essentially re-rolled. Based on player feedback, we added a way to restock or re-roll the black market between operations. This, of course, comes at a cost that increases with every use. It looks like it starts at 40 supply, which is very reasonable, but then will scale up over time if you keep using it. Good way though, if there's a particular weapon or vehicle or accessory that you need to get a hold of, or you just want to get more uses of things like recruitment for troops or for SLs or whatever, good way to have that be available to you without having to go through a slew of missions, potentially 15 missions if you're on that alien wildlife operation, before you get access to those new updates. We also now have a new accessory, which I'm extremely excited about, the Signal Jammer. Tired of getting blown away by Rogue Army ATGM teams? I am. Well, you can now get a Signal Jammer from the black market and some faction reward lists that remove enemy target designations on your units. This was always a huge complaint for me, as basically once you got targeted by something, you just had no recourse other than falling back completely to the other side of the map to try and keep yourself from getting blown away by enemy high power infantry or artillery or ATGMs or the like. Now, if you know you're going to be fighting an enemy force that is likely to, or guaranteed to, comprise troops that will mark things and then blow them away, you have an accessory you can get that can help to mitigate that. This is very nice. I hate when you have completely uninteractable mechanics in games like this. Very happy to see this addition to MENACE. The amount of enemies that you're going to see on the field has also been adjusted. Quote, "This is more of an internal topic, but it's still important that you know about it, as it took a lot of time and effort on our end. The calculations for enemy army points and how things like mission setups, campaign progress, or strategy assets affected it had to be reworked by us. Essentially, this system now has given Overhype the ability to fully control how many points and how many troops and what sort of force you're going to be looking at from mission to mission, which is going to make it much easier for them to customize and build missions from here on. This means, though, that they had to change enemy army points for all missions throughout all campaign progress levels. They think it's going to be pretty close to where it was originally, but you might see some outliers here and there. Of course, we're in early access, so all this stuff is subject to change. If you run into anything particularly egregious, you can send in feedback to the team and they'll get it sorted out as best they can. But something to consider, that after this update, the types of enemies that you see and the number of enemies that you see could suddenly change without much warning. And then, of course, as always, there's a bunch of bug fixes, other random improvements, all that type of stuff. We're going to have to wait for the full changelog when the update drops to see exactly what all of these are. And there's usually some nice surprises in there. So we'll definitely do a follow-up once that update comes out to discuss all of the other changes that don't get brought up here. Now, though, it's time for the big one. We need to discuss the 3 new characters that you are going to be able to recruit and how you are going to be able to recruit them, what they're going to bring to your squad, and everything else that we currently know that is associated with them. These 3 characters you've seen on the thumbnail for this video, and I will have them on screen right now as well. They are Harlan Corlain from Dice of the Gods, Roisin Murdoch from Zane Beecher Inc., and Wayi Woo from The Backbone. Each of these characters are going to have a very interesting niche to fill. I really like how all 3 of them function. We're going to go over that right now because we have seen what all of their unique abilities are and what their intended playstyles are. However, the first thing that we need to note is exactly how you're going to recruit these characters. Unlike all of the other squad leaders and pilots currently in the game, you're not going to be able to just get a dossier for a random character and then spend your influence to be able to put them on the team. Instead, these 3 characters are something called honor guards, where they have a direct tie to a particular faction and planet in the system. That means that you need to actually reach certain trust thresholds with those factions before they will then join you. Now that might sound like a lot, however, we have a little bit of a scaling system here. The first honor guard that you recruit is apparently very cheap, but then after that you have a scaling cost where it gets harder and harder and takes longer and longer to get the other characters. So you're definitely going to want to focus the one that is going to best suit the play style that you want to have from the start of a campaign. Due to the difficulty of recruiting these characters, they all technically start at level 2, meaning they start with slightly better stats, and also come with 5 unique perks instead of the 4 that the other characters have. So these are going to be a little bit higher tier in some ways than the rest of the leaders that we're used to. First off, we're going to talk about Harlan Corlain from Dice of the Gods, who is very much a sort of Black Ops top tier henchman kind of character, and has a lot of play with close quarters concealment, something we've not really seen in Menace up to this point. His primary personal skill is in and out. His sabotage skill costs 0 AP, so any missions where you need to do sabotage, he'll be very good at. He counts as 2 units in capture zones, so anything where you're going to be taking territory, he's going to be extremely valuable in, because, trying to overcome certain mass amount of enemy units can be very difficult to do in some of those scenarios. He has plus 30% accuracy versus eliminate target units, so excellent against those types of assassinations, and neutral units who are rescued by Corlain have movement costs reduced by 4. So basically, this is a very objective-based utility character. He's going to be able to do all the things that you need to do on missions that aren't something simple, just like get everyone to escape or kill as many enemy units as possible or whatever. He's going to be the expert for all of those, and as such, you're going to want to bring him along for them. And what's nice is all of his other perks lean into that as well, such as Ice in the Veins, where he gets plus 4% defense and 4% damage reduction for each point of concealment. So essentially, we are pushing him forward into the front line, trying to achieve objectives, and then if for one reason or another you're no longer able to keep him in concealment, he's still going to be very resilient that first round of attacks when the enemy finally detects him, something that a character like Darby is very bad at. Anyone who's ever had Darby in a bad position and that they didn't realize she could be seen from, and then her squad just got lit up by some high firepower enemies, you know how quickly they'll fold. Should not be the case here with Corlain. Going along with this, he has the door-to-door skill, where he gains +1 concealment when in medium cover or +3 when in heavy. Again, very much encouraging you to be able to push forward with him as quickly and aggressively as possible, which I enjoy. He has the backup plan skill, where he gets +20% accuracy, 50% damage, and 50% armor penetration when using projectile-based accessories. So again, if you have a little bit of a holdout pistol or something on you, then you can really deal some good damage with it. And then finally, he has the Nothing Personal skill, which gives him +10 concealment after killing an enemy within 2 tiles, which is an absolute boatload of concealment, though you do lose it by taking any actions except ending your turn. So basically, in an emergency scenario, you can just blow away a vulnerable enemy unit and then hunker down and pray that you're able to get away on the following turn. However, it does have a bonus effect as well. When your concealment is at or above 10, Corlain's concealment stat becomes immune to enemy scans, and he gains +50% damage when attacking enemies within 2 tiles. So, if you have an enemy unit like a Menace Crawler that puts out a scan to try and then detect units that are in concealment, you will no longer have to worry about that with Corlain so long as you have enough concealment. And then hopefully you can just blow away anything that's gotten too close to you and then restack that concealment. There's a lot of combo potential here, and I'm probably the most interested in Corlain as a playable character, though we're going to talk about the other 2 next. Speaking of which, we next have Roisin Murdoch from Zane Beecher Incorporated, and she is our pilot of the group. Very much has some 20s to 40s gangster vibes going on here, except if you put one of those gangsters in a tank, which is pretty interesting, and the way she plays very much leans into that, with her base personal skill, Buyout. Buyout says, once per mission and within 8 tiles, Murdoch can bribe a civilian, scavenger, outcast, or conscript to fight for you. After use, gain a free squatty to your manpower pool. So this should already be telling you that Murdoch is very much another one of those meta progression characters. Unlike someone like Jean, who just gives you a bunch of extra supplies to use in the black market, Murdoch is going to be a very valuable source of new people to put on the field in your squads, and on expert difficulty in particular, that's absolutely been an issue that I've been running into very regularly. To go along with this meta progression idea, Murdoch also has the ability Insurance, where if you have an unfinished or failed secondary objective, Murdoch will automatically complete it at mission end. So basically, if you had a hard time getting to the extraction point before the turn timer ran out, or maybe a particular group of civilians that you were trying to rescue got blown away before you can get them to the extract, Murdoch will be able to complete it for you, ensuring that you're making good progress through all of your operations. She then has the ZB license agreement, and this one I think is really cool. Once per mission, spend 40 AP to disable any kind of technical unit for 1 turn. Basically, the idea being that Zane Beecher has their hands in every piece of tech in the Wayback, and that means Murdoch has the codes to go in and disable that tech temporarily. I really enjoy this for some of the big heavy targets that you just don't have the time and firepower to blow away the first time it comes out of the fog of war. Just send Murdoch at it, shut it down for a turn, and buy yourself the space that you need to be able to safely dispose of it before it absolutely devastates one of your squads or your vehicles. I love this skill. I expect to make a lot of use of it. And it also ignores cover, which is really nice. Next up, we have Short Squeeze. If an enemy is diagonally, vertically, or horizontally between Murdoch and an ally, Murdoch will do plus 50% damage to that enemy. Murdoch on her ally must be at least within 8 tiles of each other. So, fret not, Murdoch is not just a meta progression character, even though that is probably her primary role. Here she does get a nice damage boost as well from intelligent positioning by making an enemy be stuck between you and another squatty or vehicle or whatever. This one's very simple, it's very self-explanatory, but just having bonuses for flanking things and being able to deal really big damage to hard targets just by good positioning, lovely. Very nice niche, not something that we've ever really seen before with any other characters. Finally, we have Overtime. Once per attack, if Murdoch reduces an enemy's HP to at least 20%, she will instantly attack the same target again for free. Does not apply to run over attacks. So remember, this is a pilot character. You're not running around with squaddies with her. You're going to be in at least a walker, if not a full-fledged tank. And that means you are going to have some very high firepower weaponry. However, sometimes your accuracy is bad, sometimes a target is just particularly hard or has good cover, and you aren't quite able to finish the job, though you do get very close. Now, with this skill, Murdoch can just say, nah, I'd win, and finish them off before you have to worry about them being able to get a counterattack in. I know for a fact that there's going to be a lot of times where, like, an attack with the long-barreled tank gun just doesn't quite finish off a crawler or a heavy tank or something equivalent, and then Murdoch can just then go again and finish it off for me. I'm very excited about this. It's just one more reason why I'm never going to want to ever run a character like Bog when there's so many better pilot characters. I love this one, and there's a very solid chance that I'm going to be power leveling Murdoch at the beginning of the game to get as many benefits from her as possible. However, we do need to talk about the last of our 3 recruits here with Wayi Woo from the Backbone, and Wayi Woo is very interesting. We have very few tank characters in the game thus far, and it's entirely possible that Wayi Woo is going to rise to the top of that niche role to be the best of the best. He is an infantry squad leader, and he wants to be on the front line, dealing as much damage and taking as much damage as possible, in large part due to his Dare to Die personal skill, which says, once per mission, if Wayi Woo is struck with fatal damage, it will be ignored and he will be invulnerable until the next round. Okay, very interesting. You know, still means that you've lost all of your squaddies, which isn't particularly desirable. However, there's a follow-up. Gain 3% crit chance per killed enemy unit. The gained crit chance caps at 30%. So not only are you getting a benefit to defense, it's going to make it harder and harder for you to be brought down, because eventually you're going to get hit to the point where you can take a whole tank blast to the chest and just say, nah, I'm good. But over the course of a mission, while you're being incredibly aggressive with this character and his squad, they'll be getting more and more crits so they can keep dealing more and more damage. Now on its own, that doesn't sound like the best. Like, it's good, but it's not amazing until we get to some of these other skills, such as Destination Known. Gain 1% damage for every 1% of lost HP. Wayi Woo's combat effectiveness will be kept closely commensurate with the squad size he started with. So basically, so long as you're okay with potentially having to recruit a bunch more squaddies over the course of a campaign, which characters like Murdoch are going to help you with, I very much enjoy that fact, then no matter how big his squad is, Wayi Woo is still going to be just as devastatingly effective. And that is really, really cool. It's a major issue with Menace for both your squads and enemy squads. As soon as they start to lose members, their combat effectiveness drops significantly. So a character who's able to say, no, that's not actually something that's going to apply to me and I'm going to keep dealing a very similar amount of damage, that's really cool. I think that's really awesome. We then have Divination by Combat. 3% damage reduction each time Wayi Woo kills an enemy unit or he is suppressed. The damage reduction caps at 30%. This just scales perfectly well with the rest of his kit. Now, not only are you getting extra crit chance per kill with his base skill, but now if you get suppressed or you kill something, you're also getting more and more damage reduction, which means it's going to be even harder for the enemy to bring him down. I love this. Finally, we have our last two skills. The first, Sacrifice, is a particularly interesting one. After Wayi Woo's first squaddy is lost to enemy fire, he gains suppression resistance and critical chance for the duration of that mission, which again is going to stack perfectly with the damage reduction and even more critical chance that he's getting from his other skills. And if you have a good medical facility on your ship, then there's not even any guarantee that those squaddies are going to be lost forever while still giving you the buffs for Wayi Woo. And then, of course, we have Spear of the Spine, which should probably set off some interesting alarms, seeing as how we are directly calling out the name of a particular faction and world. Once per turn, plus 40 action points, and plus 100% critical damage when ending movement adjacent to an enemy. Lim, eat your heart out, buddy. We might have a new contender for a jump pack shotgun squad with Wayi Woo here. Throw yourself into the enemy lines, get so much crit damage. You'll have extra crit chance from probably having killed other stuff. You get more AP, so you can fire more shots and just blow stuff away. For my play style, where I do like to be able to throw myself into the front, both Wayi Woo and Corlain I think are going to be must-pick characters for me. I hate the hang back and just slowly snipe stuff play style. I don't want to play that way if I can avoid it, and it's really nice to see some characters that are going to enable that style of play. I think Corlain, Murdoch, and Wayi Woo are all really, really cool additions, and it's really cool that we're going to have another reason to keep raising our reputation with these factions so we can get a hold of these really awesome characters. Now, I know this has been a chunky one, so I'm not going to keep rambling on here, but I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. What do you think of these new SLs? What do you think of the AI changes, the new difficulty options, and what else are you hoping to see come during this early access period? Because obviously we're getting a lot of good stuff thus far, and I expect we're going to have even more to look forward to over the rest of the year. I'd love to hear about all that down in the comments below, but for now, my name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. I hope that you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there, everybody. And remember, be good to each other, y'all. Bye now.